The ground is white enough to look cold. But before noon, this place will behave like a furnace with no roof. You arrive before sunrise at a coastal saltern somewhere in the Roman Mediterranean, carrying a wooden rake and an empty reed basket. Salt is not a luxury here. It preserves food, seasons grain, supports trade, and helps keep armies and cities supplied. The ponds around you form a controlled machine. Seawater enters shallow basins. Sunlight removes the water, and workers collect what remains. Your assignment sounds simple. Break the crystal crust, rake the salt into piles, load it, and carry it before the light disappears. The exact routine varied by region and century. What follows is a plausible reconstruction built from ancient saltern archaeology and modern evidence from salt pan labor. At first, the brine only reaches your ankles. The water is warm, dense, and harmless looking beneath the pale morning sky. Then it finds the small cut beside your heel. The pain is immediate, not deadly, but sharp enough to change the way you walk. Every hidden crack in your hands and feet is discovered by the salt. The work begins by turning minor damage into constant distraction. Your tools are basic: a long wooden rake, a shallow scoop, woven baskets, rope, cloth, and whatever fresh water was brought from inland. You pull the rake through the crystallized surface. It resists, breaks, and releases a grinding layer of wet salt beneath the crust. The first basket is manageable. The next is heavier. Wet crystals hold water, and every load must cross a narrow embankment. Before the heat rises, you drink. Not because you are thirsty yet, but because the jug may need to last the entire shift. The sun clears the horizon quickly. The white pans stop reflecting the sky and begin throwing light back into your face. Sweat forms beneath your headcloth and runs down your neck. It cools you, but it also carries salt and grit across the skin. Where the cloth rubs, the skin grows raw. Where sweat dries, crystals remain. Movement turns them into fine abrasive particles. Your palms tighten around rough wood. A small split opens near one finger, and the next splash of brine enters it immediately. The pain does not stop the job. It becomes part of the job, small enough to ignore, persistent enough to drain concentration. Now the glare becomes a second problem. Bright salt, shallow water, and pale mud increase the light reaching your eyes. There are no modern ultraviolet lenses. A worker can narrow the eyes, turn away, use cloth, or keep working through the brightness. Intense ultraviolet exposure in a highly reflective environment can inflame the corneal surface. The injury is often temporary, but it can cause hours of severe pain, tearing, light sensitivity, and reduced vision. You pull the cloth lower across your brow. It helps with direct sunlight, but it cannot remove the reflection rising from below. The embankments are only wide enough for careful feet. On one side is shallow brine. On the other, a crust that may not hold. A loaded basket shifts your center of gravity. One bad step can spill the salt, twist an ankle, or drive broken crust into wet skin. You slip. The fall is small, but one hand lands in brine and salt presses into the fresh split near your finger. The instinct is to stop. The pressure to keep producing is stronger. Salt has value only after someone carries it out of the pan. Ancient labor arrangements varied, but whether a worker was free, contracted, dependent, or coerced, visible piles, measured output, and the authority of a supervisor could keep the body moving. You check the clay jug. It is still more than half full, but the hottest part of the day has not arrived. Your body is losing water through sweat faster than slow rationing replaces it. Thirst is only one warning signal. Your mouth dries. Your heartbeat rises. The same load now feels heavier even though the basket has not changed. A dull headache develops behind the eyes. It could be glare, dehydration, heat, or all three acting together. The calf tightens halfway across an embankment. You freeze, balance the basket, and wait for the cramp to release. Muscle cramps are not the final stage of heat illness, but they can become the mistake that causes a fall. Another worker takes the basket while you steady yourself. Survival in a workplace like this depends partly on whether anyone notices the decline. There is almost no shade in the production area. The open landscape is efficient for evaporation and punishing for the people inside it. A low reed shelter near the edge offers a few minutes away from direct sun, but the unfinished salt remains in full light. Inside, the air is still hot. The difference is simple. Your eyes can open fully, and your skin stops receiving direct solar radiation. You drink again. The water is warm, slightly earthy, and precious. Cooling it matters less than keeping enough inside your body. Returning to work feels harder than starting. The shoulders are stiff, the feet are tender, and the glare seems brighter than before. The basket edge presses into the same part of your shoulder every trip. Repetition turns pressure into swelling and pain. Your foot wrappings remain wet with brine. Prolonged moisture softens skin, making it easier to blister, split, and abrade. A small blister opens under the forefoot. Salt enters every time you step down, and avoiding the spot changes your balance. Modern studies of salt pan workers report skin problems, eye complaints, dehydration, weakness, musculoskeletal strain, and heat stress. Ancient workers lacked modern protective equipment, organized cooling, and rapid medical support. The danger is cumulative. No single sensation seems important enough to end the shift, but together they reduce judgment and coordination. At midday, the shadows shrink almost beneath your feet. The surface appears flat, bright, and endless. Experienced workers change rhythm before collapse. Shorter pulls, smaller loads, slower crossings, and brief pauses can preserve control. But slowing down creates another risk. The work may remain unfinished when conditions finally improve near sunset. Your linen tunic is soaked at the back and stiff with dried salt at the edges. Fabric now protects and irritates at the same time. The crust is drier in this section. It breaks into sharper fragments that scrape the ankles and catch beneath the wrappings. A splinter rises from the rake handle. You feel it enter the palm, remove it quickly, and know the brine will find the puncture. The jug is nearly empty. The remaining water is no longer a comfort. It is a calculation. Drink too little, and heat strain deepens. Drink everything now, and the final hours have no reserve. You begin to feel unusually weak. The hands tremble slightly when the rake catches beneath a thick section of crust. Heat exhaustion can bring heavy sweating, dizziness, nausea, headache, and weakness. Confusion, fainting, or collapse would mean the situation is becoming dangerous. You miss the edge of a pile with the scoop. It is a small error, but it shows that coordination is slipping. The safest choice is to stop in shade, loosen clothing, drink, and cool the body. The working world may not reward that choice. You sit at the embankment edge while another worker pours a little fresh water over the cloth on your neck. The relief is immediate but incomplete. Cooling the skin helps, yet the missing fluid and accumulated fatigue remain. This is the central survival decision. Protect the body before collapse, or continue until the body makes the decision for you. You return with a smaller basket. It means more trips, but each crossing now requires less balance and less muscular effort. The eyes begin to burn sharply, tears form, and the white surface becomes difficult to examine without looking away. Ultraviolet corneal injury can become most painful after exposure, when the damage has already occurred. For a few moments, you keep one eye closed and use the other to judge the edge of the path. A nearby worker guides you across the narrowest section. Visual impairment does not need to be permanent to become dangerous here. The sun finally begins to lower, but the last piles still have to be moved before moisture returns to the surface. One basket tips. Crystals scatter across the embankment. Earlier you would recover them quickly. Now bending down makes the world tilt. You leave part of the spill. Survival means abandoning the idea that every grain must be saved. The final load is the smallest of the day. Your arms shake, your shoulder burns, and each footstep is planned. When the shift ends, fresh water is used first on the eyes, hands, and feet, not because the pain is gone, but because the salt remains. The skin shows the record of the day: reddened folds, softened feet, open cracks, pressure marks, and white crystals trapped in cloth. Repeated exposure could contribute to recurring eye problems, chronic skin damage, musculoskeletal pain, repeated dehydration, and kidney strain. Not one dramatic wound, but accumulated harm. The ancient saltern was not a fantasy death trap. It was more unsettling, a necessary workplace where ordinary conditions repeatedly pushed bodies toward failure. Could you survive the shift? Possibly, by covering the skin, shielding the eyes, pacing the work, drinking early, choosing smaller loads, and stopping before confusion begins. But surviving one day is not the same as surviving a lifetime of them. How many times could your body return to the white furnace?